$100 bonus offer while supplies last. Plus, lock in your price for 2 years guaranteed. Call All American Dish, your dish authorized retailer now.
800-570-6630. 800-570-6630. That's 800-570-6630. Offers require credit qualification, 24-month commitment, early termination fee, and e-auto pay. Restrictions apply. Call for details.
All right, welcome back. It's episode number 6 of the Gut Check Project with your host, Dr. Kenneth Brown. I'm Eric Rieger. What's up, Ken?
Eric Rieger, what's going on, my man?
Not a whole lot. What's going on with you?
This is one of, well, we've had 5 episodes.
We've had 5
and
episodes.
I would say that all 5 episodes, personally, I've enjoyed hanging out with our guests.
Yeah.
I'm going to go on record and say that I think today is going to be our best episode ever because the person we have is a law and policy expert in the hemp and CBD industry.
Without question, I'm very excited to have Joy Beckerman. She currently works with Elixinol, but she is a regulatory officer and industry liaison, specifically with hemp. She's got well over 25 years, I think 28 years, working specifically.
She started when she was 7 years old because she does not look like anybody that's older than 28.
Maybe we'll learn there's a little bit about utilizing hemp for that long that it makes you not age.
What?
Have we heard that before?
Well, hemp does have polyphenols.
Polyphenols, yeah. Speaking of polyphenols, what do you know about polyphenols?
Polyphenols. So last week we talked about how polyphenols help in athletes. We've talked about how the future of the Mediterranean diet and why it's an anti-aging diet, why it's anti-inflammatory is due to polyphenols. Why do I know so much about polyphenols?
Probably because you may be connected to a product called Atrantil.
My baby, Atrantil.
So with Atrantil, it is chock full of polyphenols, and as well, it has the world's most stable polyphenol, red quebracho, quebracho colorado. And if you'd like to learn a little bit more, go to lovemytummy.com/Spoonie.
I want to sign for that. lovemytummy.com/Spoonie. Remember, everyone, that this is a startup digital radio station. We need to support our advertisers. We need to support the radio station itself. So please go to lovemytummy.com/Spoonie.
You know, you're bringing up Spoonie. I do want to give a shout out. I have enjoyed the last 2 weeks with some of the live shows that Spoonie offers. Another one that I started listening to the last couple of weeks is Trey's Chow Down with Trey Chapman. It's a great show. So I know that they are always live, I believe, on Fridays at 10 Eastern, 9 Central. I'm sorry, 11 Eastern, 10 Central. And so anyhow, if you want to listen to it live, or you can always listen to it recorded, that is Trey's Chow Down Live. Give them a listen. I think you'll love it.
I think this radio station is going to explode. I think it's digital. I think this is really cool, and I'm very honored to be part of it. I want to thank Chef Patrick and Ron and everybody else here. And, of course, a shout-out to Doc Thompson, who really is the one that convinced us to do this, and unfortunately is no longer with us, but his legacy lives on.
Definitely. Thanks to all of them. We need to do what we've now does 6 shows make a tradition? I think it does. I think it does. So first, we're going to go to what happened here lately with Dr. Ken Brown.
So what we always try and do is do a little bit of personal stuff. Fortunately, my week was not as dramatic as yours because you have a much more interesting story. A couple interesting things happened to me. I have lost my wallet somehow. I don't think it was literally, I think I lost it in the house somewhere, but I've been like several days without it, which means all my credit cards and everything. Not trying to say it's a big deal, but it does humble you a little bit when you go, oh, wow, I need gas money. I'm going to have to go find some cash. I'm like looking. It's wild. A couple weeks ago when we had Mark Simmelman on, who we're going to bring up in a second, he after that show, my son was playing in the Easter Bowl. And because of how well he did in that tournament, the rankings came out yesterday, and he is officially the #1 ranked 15 and under tennis player in the country.
Amazing.
So shout out to my man Lucas for doing that. And then the other really exciting thing is the thing that we've been working on very hard at is that Digestive Health Associates, DHAT, my company, is going to be the first company to launch a subscription health box.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know exactly what this is, that's A-OK, because this literally is a first-time pioneer move of physicians wanting to basically break the bounds of the clinical setting, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And I love how my company's embraced it. I had a long talk with the president, Jim Hackert, yesterday, and he's an innovator, and he's thinking, and he says, we can do this, and we're going to be the first large digestive group to deliver health to your home. And one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to shoot a video with doctors where they really are so passionate that they believe in things. And I just wanted to play a quick little clip of my man Trey Lyles, who's out here in this neck of Texas, because what we did is we're going to, if you sign up for this email, it's going to be so exciting. We're going to be able to offer a lot of very beneficial supplements that have been vetted by doctors to improve your health. We're going to protect your brain. We're going to protect your gut. We're going to get you to sleep better, which is going to make you all around much better. So I just wanted to get video clips of our doctors doing some stuff. And this is just a quick little one of Dr. Trey Lyles. Where are we at here?
Oh, you want you to turn towards this camera, yeah.
Let's see if we can do this here.
I
just thought this was funny. We just let him riff.
We believe that your gut health starts today. We believe that everybody farts, but sometimes you don't want to.
I thought that was awesome.
Okay, I was like, where's he going with that? That was funny.
Yeah, so that is one of my colleagues. He's a very respected gastroenterologist, Dr. Trey Lyles, and I love the fact that he's just, I mean, we're being real.
Yeah.
We're going to get in people's homes, and this is going to be exciting.
Well, we won't run through all of the benefits there, but literally, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be something that addresses a lot of issues that, what I think you'll learn is between 75 and 85% of Americans have to battle with every single month. And I think that DHAT's taken a huge step forward in saying we want to be a part of this and we want to find a solution. So
yeah, this is a shout out to the doctors that are embracing this. Shout out to Jim Hackert, our president, who is on board with this. And I think we're going to change the landscape of health in the DFW Metroplex, and we will expand beyond that. And hopefully through platforms like this, we'll be able to help many other people.
Definitely.
Now, that being said, that was pretty much my week. You had a little more exciting week.
I did. Number one, so make no mistake about it, if you listen to the last couple of episodes, I'm a big Texas Tech Red Raider fan. They made it to the not only the Final Four, they made it to the final game, went to overtime. It was great. We had a blast. Unfortunately, came up short. Virginia was a great adversary. They played great. Two teams battling out. We couldn't ask for a better game. That being said, my friend Mark Simmelman, who was on the show 2 weeks ago, was nice enough to fly me, my wife, my two sons, all the way to Minneapolis. We had a great...
Because he's a pilot for...
He is a pilot for himself and, of course, volunteers his time for Raquel's Wings.
Which is so cool.
Yeah. It is.
If you go back and listen to that show, it's a fascinating story.
It's episode 4, and he talks about how they donate their time as pilots, private pilots, to give free transportation to cancer patients so they can get treatment from the facilities that they need. All of that said, everything was great. The two mornings ago, we left Minneapolis, and we had planned that we were going to land in Kansas City. We're going to stop for barbecue. And Mark's daughter was with us as well. And she said, we're going to go to Joe's Barbecue. I've got a lot of friends in college that talk about it, and we're just going to go and check it out. So we're all very excited. We take off, we fly, and flight was very comfortable. And I happened to just glance out the left window, and in this particular plane is a Cessna dual engine plane. I look at the left, and I see what looks like fluid trickling. And before I sound the alarms, I'm like, I'll check out the other engine.
Now it's you, your kids, and your wife, right?
Yeah. Me, my kids, my wife, Emily Ann, who is Mark's daughter, and Mark's co-pilot, and his name is Drew, who was actually a friend of my dad's. And so I go and I check out the other engine, and I say, that does not look like the engine I just looked at.
You're not a plane expert, but fluid coming out of the engine.
Not a plane, not an aviation expert at all, but I was like, that looks like something that other people should know about that would want to do something about it. So I leaned up front and I said, Mark, Drew, there's a little bit of something. It looks like oil dripping from the engine over here on the right side. They both looked over and they said, yeah, we're going to check that out. We're not losing pressure. So that could be some overfill or something else like that while we were stationed in Minneapolis. They may have topped it off and checked, etc. They had perfectly rational reasons. And then suddenly the oil pressure dropped on that engine. And they said, no, that's not what that was, but we are fine. and they cut the engine, and we had a perfectly well-running airplane with its left engine going. And they said, we are going to land at a large airport where probably there will be a Cessna mechanic on hand. Check this out. It looks like it's nothing more than a small oil leak. We'll fix it. And they have, but whenever you lose power to an engine or you have to voluntarily cut one off, you have to declare an emergency, even though by all counts and measures, it actually wasn't. Mark and Drew were calm as cucumbers. I felt pretty comfortable with it. My son, Mac, he basically looked at me for some assurance and said, "Is it okay?" I said, "I think so." And then Mark's daughter, Emily Ann, said they've trained on this 1,000 times. Marie was like, "Yeah, I'll feel better when we're down." And then thanks to Snapchat, Gage is at the back, basically just taking his phone and like, "Hey, check this out," and sending clips to Mark's son and saying, "Hey, I'm in the plane with your dad. Engine's out. What do you think?"
What was the response?
They heard back from Carson and from Marcus, and they both basically was like, "Hey, man, sorry, that's all you got, Gage. Good being friends with you." So lots of.
So you have a dead engine.
Yeah.
Up there, you're with your family.
Right.
Marie is not handling it quite as well as the boys. The boys are Snapchatting, and it's like, well, it's good to know you.
Yeah, pretty much. So it's a perfect scenario. If you like movies, we probably could have filled the role pretty well. But we did land and safely.
You guys didn't pull an Almost Famous, did you? Where you started disclosing a lot of secrets.
We didn't have to give away any secrets. Everybody was calm enough that it wasn't Panic City, and pulled in. Unfortunately, no mechanic on hand. So. No mechanic that could address a Cessna anyhow. And this is at the Des Moines International Airport. So that was a little bit surprising. But regardless, they then turned into try to find a flight from there back to Dallas. Couldn't do it. Everybody was packed because people that couldn't fly into Minnesota for the Final Four, since Texas had such a large contingent going up to watch Tech, so many people had driven down to Des Moines to catch a flight. There was nothing going back to Dallas. So it basically was, we're going to get a van and we're going to drive back to Dallas. And that's what we did.
Ugh.
That was not planned, and that is a long way. So, but huge shout out to Drew Bruton and to Mark Simmelman, incredible pilots, calm under all kinds of pressure. Made it seem, if you didn't know, you wouldn't have known. Basically, is all I had to say about that.
That's amazing.
It really was.
You and I have been in a couple small planes before where we hit some turbulence.
You don't like it.
I do not like it at all. One time we were flying to Austin for a meeting, and we hit some very serious turbulence, and you were sitting right in front of me, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, this is pretty crazy." And you were just like, "Yeah, but there's nothing we can do about it. If we go down, we're going down, and you just can't argue with it." I was like, "That's an interesting philosophy."
I can't fly a plane. There's nothing I can do. Once you leave, you're the passenger. But fortunately, I think in most circumstances, you're the passenger of some great, capable pilots. So for the most,
well, Mark told the whole story about how his son, when his son was training,
sure,
about how he had an emergency and was able to land.
Right.
And so, I mean, it can happen to anybody, and everybody trains for it. So that's amazing.
Yeah, it can. And we talked a lot about that. So that piqued my interest while we were waiting on different things that change while you're at high altitudes. And what happens? Why is it okay to have one propeller working with the other not? So you begin to learn a little bit about fluid dynamics and how the air. Well, then it led to something else completely different. I started thinking, what do people complain about just on regular flights? Did you know that one of the chief complaints about flight is the taste of food? Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Lufthansa apparently did a scientific study, I believe it was back in 2008, if I remember it correctly, about what people experience whenever they try to eat foods that they love on the ground versus what it's like up in the air. And it turns out at high altitudes with a lack of barometric pressure, that sweetness and saltiness of the 5 core tastes are lost. And one of the ones that's retained is savory. So, utilizing the Japanese term for savory, which I believe is umami.
Umami.
There are lots
Chef Patrick, do you want to comment on that real quick?
No, it's not my mommy. It's you, mommy.
Yeah.
There you go. So, umami.
No, you're right. I was joking. It's umami.
Oh,
umami. Yeah.
I will take direction. I've checked my ego at the door, just like we said.
Yeah.
So I'm listening.
We're allowed to have an ego here that we can leave behind? Cool.
You're a chef, so we're gonna trust you. But I like that. I like that chef humor. I got my gastroenterology humor. You mommy, my mommy, whatever.
I'm curious as to what. So what was the reasoning for that? That the savory tends to diminish?
Savory tends to be held onto, and but saltiness and sweetness basically disappear in terms of normal aspects for people to perceive. Whatever you don't have, I believe the other two are bitterness and sourness. So you've got bitter, sour, salty, sweet, and savory. Savory tends to be retained the best. So foods are then now being designed to enhance the savory aspect of taste. But also, if something relies more along the lines of the olfactory senses, that diminishes as well with a lack of barometric pressure. So savory is basically the savior of food taste while you're up in the air for people to like food and say that it's delectable. So sometimes if there's a savory beer, it does much better than an alcoholic drink that doesn't. But one that is tasted the most or ordered the most is going to be a Bloody Mary because of the tomato juice and savory, the savory stimulation that comes from having a tomato juice based cocktail.
I love the science of food.
Yeah.
I'm looking this up right now. And on the BBC, they have a guy named Charles Spence has written a book called Gastrophysics, where he addresses all these issues like background noise on planes and what it does to sweet and salty taste. Professor of experimental psychology, gastrophysics. So basically, how you taste in different environments.
It's so funny that you bring up the thing about sound because it took me down a completely different pathway on. If someone is trying to learn how to eat healthy, maybe part of the reason is their environment may not be something that is also conducive to enjoying new foods. If you had a really loud or distractive area to eat, you may not enjoy a new food and its full array or palette, I guess you could say, of what it has to offer if it's a really distracting environment. So people who may continually come home and rush to eat and have the TV blaring and lots of distractions, they oftentimes report a lack of satisfaction from eating foods that other people find incredibly delectable, where they
oh my goodness, that's fascinating.
It is fascinating.
That's a whole separate deal because now we're talking, you will probably over sugar and over salt your food trying to achieve more taste.
Saltiness and sweetness are lost first with loud noise, and they're also lost with lack of air pressure. So you tend to eat or make selections worse and try to overcompensate by oversalting and oversweetening foods. It's amazing.
Okay, so now let's take it up another notch because I was listening to a podcast from Rhonda Patrick where she had Dr. Barker on, who's a sleep expert. Mm-hmm. And he was quoting a study where they were able to put people to sleep and had just enough noise level to not wake them up.
Right.
And they were able to pull them out of deep sleep. So they never got into deep sleep. And then she brought something up, and it was, do the city sounds, can they do that? Then he said that there's no study that's been done on it, but lower socioeconomic areas where they're more populated with more noise, that may be one of the reasons why people gain weight. His feeling was because of the lack of sleep, lack of deep sleep. But now you've just brought up something else. The two combined could be why we do have poorer health in lower socioeconomic areas that are more populated. Interesting.
Totally. And it just sounds like the more chaotic that your environment is, unfortunately, it's a vicious cycle. It's just going to play into not only your food choices, but basically what you're doing to doctor up your food. If it could mean that you're adding a little too much salt, which I don't, that in and of itself could be a little controversial. I don't think that salt by itself is terrible, but oversalting possibly could be, but sugar without a doubt in terms of inflammation, et cetera. If you're over sweetening or you find yourself adding more sweetener, just take a step back, maybe examine what is my environment like that I'm enjoying the food that I'm eating, because they also attributed not only altitude, but jet engine noise as the reason that some people lose perception of saltiness and sweetness when they're eating up in the air.
This is so fascinating. I'm so happy that so for instance, did you notice that when your family was screaming as you guys were falling out of the sky that you were not enjoying your food as much?
Well, not only that, Gage had a Morton's salt container and basically was just pouring it in. And Mac always travels with bags of high fructose corn syrup, so he was just bathing in it. I mean, he was just very sticky. There's nothing he could do. We couldn't eat, and we didn't have an engine.
Speaking of high fructose corn syrup, was it last episode that we did a whole study on that where we looked at high fructose corn syrup and its effect on health?
Definitely.
Yeah, go ahead and listen to that. It's fascinating. I'm looking at this. This is like a whole new area of science that is just super intriguing.
I would not have looked it up had we not been laying over trying to get the engine repaired.
You had not been falling out of the sky.
Yeah.
That is.
Speaking of last week, though, we did get a lot of feedback from people who wanted to know, number one, how to get a hold of James Carroll. Again, that is thorlaser.com if you want to learn a lot more about photobiomodulation. Incredible interview last week. I mean, and the other questions were, why don't more people know about this technology? And that's not really any different than what we're dealing with in terms of hemp and CBD and how we can get it part of the mainstream, which leads into our guest today.
There are so many similarities. James Carroll has been in the industry in this photobiomodulation for 25 years.
Right.
Joy Beckerman's been doing this for 25 years. What
Right.
she's going to talk about is in her blood. What he talked about is in his blood. What I loved about his interview was the struggles, and he kept going. And I'm sure Joy's going to have some incredible things. Once again, a law and policy expert. We're here in Texas where the law is super confusing.
Yeah.
I'm a huge CBD proponent. We've got our own CBD, hemp-derived, powered by Elixinol,
Yep.
who Joy works for. So go to KBMD Health. Take a look at that. We've got a few minutes left here at the top or at the bottom of the hour. I do want to open up her discussion with a quick review of CBD and autism because that is something that I've gotten a lot of questions about. My aha moment, if you're wondering why I ever even got involved with this, it's because I had a patient that their son became 18 and then became my patient, and he had severe autism. He was on the autism spectrum disorder, and now he's a man. Essentially, he's a full-grown adult male, and she noticed, my patient, the mother noticed that when he would eat, he would have more outbursts, and he was harder to control. So we were able to treat him, fix his gut, and at the time I was just handing out CBD to see if it worked, and she brought him back in, and he was a different person. And so that changed my opinion of the whole industry and realizing that, wait a minute, what is this connection with the endocannabinoid system and your gut health and your brain health? And that's where we're going to publish probably the most extensive review with a graduate student that we work with. She does an amazing job. We've got like a 40-page review, 100 references on autism and CBD. Today, I just want to do a quick review of that, and then we'll let Joy get into it because the reality is there's a lot of mothers out there who are not treating their children because of the misconception of what's going on in the hemp industry. There is a feeling that this is weed, this is THC, and all this other stuff, and that's what Joy's here today to talk about. We're going to clear it all up to make more access. Just like James Carroll with Thor Laser, we're going to try and use this platform to help more people.
Yeah, without question. And I think that you hit the nail on the head. We want to make this where it's not just an anecdotal example. We want to make this to where people can turn back and say, okay, this is research that's replicatable and makes sense. This is something that we can do to apply. And unfortunately, up until really today, these most recent times, no one's been at the liberty to do this. I mean, the endocannabinoid system, I had a conversation with Joy. We should be rejoicing. It was discovered. Its function was discovered in our lifetime. That's a big deal. I don't know. I mean, even myself, I don't know that I fully appreciated until I started seeing the application, the replication of that application, and seeing how well it actually can benefit so many people that we should be very excited that we've discovered the function and the ability to stimulate the ECS.
My whole thing, I knew nothing about CBD and the endocannabinoid system. On our first episode, we discussed this, where you and I were at PaleoFX, and we were essentially accosted by Christine Thiel of Elixinol.
Right.
And she vomited so much information on me that I couldn't even contain it. I just said, whatever, send me a case. And I gave that case away to my patients. Almost all of them came back when it ran out and said, I need more of that. That's when I knew that we were onto something big. And that's when I realized I need to start looking at the science of this. My mission is to put research out there, is to show that this works in certain disease states. Not making claims on a show, but what we're going to do is just make sense of the science because there's so much confusion out there.
Well, something else to add to those patients. I remember when you did that, it's not like you just handed it out to random patients and said, tell me that this is great. You actually weeded out and found people that had rejected or found things that they had failed in the past. They had no problem telling you things that did and did not work. So anyway, wow, that was a quick half hour.
That was a quick half hour. So I am so excited to have this person on. Joy Beckerman, she has a personality that is bigger than life. She is passionate. This is going to be so much fun. So start telling your friends to listen right now. Facebook Live, where do they go?
Facebook Live, you can go to KennethBrownMD.com. You go to Spoonie Radio, and well, that's 4 seconds. We'll see you in the next half hour.
If you are trying to quit drinking or doing too many drugs, listen to me. You don't know me and we'll never meet. I had a problem like you once. I drank and used to party a little too much till it got out of control and almost ruined my life. I realized I needed help to fix my problem before it totally destroyed me. If you've tried to fix your drinking and drug problem and you know you can't do it alone, you need to call the National Treatment Advisors. They'll immerse you into a 30-day program to replace your old habits with new habits and totally change your life. And if you have PPO private health insurance, the entire program may be covered. Fix your problem right now before it gets any worse. Get clean. Call now and learn more. 800-296-1252. 800-296-1252. 800-296-1252. 800-296-1252.
It looks like you're losing.
I am.
Are you losing weight?
I am losing. I've lost about 10 pounds.
How are you doing it?
Funny name, but I've done it with Riduzone. RIDUzone.com, and the stuff works. It's, you get into all that, the molecule this and the found in that. All I can tell you is it makes you feel full, and it keeps your mind off of wanting to overeat.
And also boosts your metabolism, so you're burning more.
Yeah,
Try it today. It's going to work for you like it's worked for Brad and countless other people. Riduzone.com. RIDUzone.com.
Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month based on what you can afford to pay. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395.
Choose this music.
Yeah,
I love it.
I know. It's really
Every
wicked
time I hear it,
wild.
I just get.
Well, welcome back. This is the second half hour here on the Gut Check Project, episode number 6. We are now joined to my right by the Joy Beckerman, and she's a little bit familiar with hemp.
Is it me, or did the energy in this room just get kicked up a notch?
I feel like I want to run a lot.
Synergy. I love it.
Synergy. That's exactly right.
Well, shout out to Elixinol for allowing us to have Joy on the show here. That's awesome.
Yes.
We work a lot with Leif and Gabe and all those peeps over there at Elixinol. Awesome company. KBMD CBD is powered by Elixinol.
It is, and it's done so for a good reason.
It's our privilege and pleasure to be working with you. And of course you chose Elixinol, guys. Transparency, purity, potency, organically sourced, all of that. World leaders.
100%.
Yeah, we just talked about how I gave away a case, and several of those people had been on other products, and they noticed a benefit. So
of course.
Some of them,
I see that a lot.
Well, some of them have been, other products. I'm assuming that you mean other CBD sources, and that is exactly right. So the difference was night and day for some of them that came back and said, I was already taking CBD before. I actually have a much more perceivable improvement than I did with my long-term CBD supplier in the past.
Absolutely. Not all CBD is the same.
We have been very fortunate. Atrantil, CBD. There's a lot of life things that happen. Having you on the show today, I kind of feel like it's kismet, fate, whatever it is. We just stumbled into Elixinol, which I think is the best company out there. Consumer Labs says it's one of the purest. It's one of the most economical per milligram. And we just stumbled into it.
Sure enough.
So sometimes fate takes you in the place that you need to be.
Most of the time.
Kind of like Gut Check Project.
Exactly. The universe is always conspiring in our favor, always conspiring in our favor.
Yeah.
And when you can control the purity of the product from the actual seed and farming practices through the processing and manufacturing, this is how we are able to control the potency and purity of our products, along with just expert product development in this emerging space.
So this is super cool. So you're a law and policy expert. What I want to do for this hour is just talk pure science, molecules, all that. No?
Law and policy. Law and policy.
She's like, hell no, we're not doing that.
We're not doing that. I do want to talk a little science before we jump into this, because I have a feeling that we're going to get deep into your expertise, which we need to clarify here in Texas. And one of the reasons why I wanted to bring this up is because we talked a little bit about autism. We're going to be publishing probably the most extensive review in autism with CBD.
Wow.
And this is just a quick little recap of that. I'm super excited to send that out. We just need to have a couple small edits, and we're going to be able to sit there and start tackling some of this. Not a disease claim. What I am going to do is just refer to some studies. Great. So autism, it's a big deal right now. 1 in 59 children are now diagnosed with autism. Compare that to 2000, year 2000, that was 1 in 150. Something's happening.
Right.
And, we don't know what it is. And the diagnostic criteria include 3 primary things, which include impairment in social interaction, impairment in communication, and restricted repetitive stereotyped behavior. That's the actual definition. But we know that the reality is that those that have autism suffer from many more things, including gastrointestinal health, which is why I treat so many kids that become 17 or older, and they come to me because they have gastrointestinal health. We know that there's other issues: seizures, anxiety, sleep dysfunction, attention deficit. Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of studies for each one of those disease processes looking at CBD. So what our review is that there was a study done out of Israel, 2019, that actually showed, it was in January of 2019, an Israeli team of researchers published the results of a study in the Journal of Scientific Reports, where they looked at 188 children diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder who were given CBD-rich oil. While the benefits were observed as early as 1 month, it was found that by 6 months, 80% of the parents reported significant or moderate improvement in childhood symptoms of autism spectrum disorder, including depression, agitation, restlessness, anxiety, cognitive impairment, sleep disturbance, constipation, and digestive issues.
Yep.
So what I tell my patients is that they're like, well, how soon will I see results? Because like many things, if I put somebody on a medication like Atrantil, it is possible that it may take 20 days to work.
Right.
What I tell my patients is, if you have an endocannabinoid deficiency, and I'm going to get in that in a second.
And chances are you do.
Chances are you do. Think of it like a sponge. You have a dry sponge. It's going to take longer and more to get that sponge wet and full. So that is something to think about. And that's what these guys looked at right here. What they showed is the endocannabinoid system, if you're unfamiliar with it, and we're going to be talking a lot about it in the future, is a family of cannabinoid receptors that are naturally occurring. What Eric talked about at the top of the hour was, we are so fortunate that my generation, I'm on Earth when we discovered the endocannabinoid system, which is just as important as the gastrointestinal system, the cardiovascular system. We have coined a term on prior shows that we're going to start seeing scientists doctors called endocannabinologists.
Absolutely. And just this morning when we were driving to the studio, Eric and I said, this is akin to discovering that the earth is round and not flat in our lifetimes. The discovery of the ECS.
Wait a minute. What? I thought it was flat. That's a whole movement.
Yeah. Dr. Brown is a flat earther.
Whoa, I'm a flat earther. Come on now.
Every now and again, Dr. Brown will just throw you a sidewinder. No, it is literally that type of discovery in our lifetime. So it's just amazing. Again, we were just discussing this. More endocannabinoid receptors in our brains than we have neurotransmitters. I mean, get real. And obviously they're throughout our entire body.
So the way that I explained it, everybody wonders, well, they talk so much about it. But the endocannabinoid system basically controls how nerve pathways behave. And this affects everything from cognition and behavior to motor function.
Homeostasis, right?
Homeostasis, so balance. So I tell my patients, look, it's a link between the immune system and the nervous system, and it just puts things back in balance. That's all it does. Get you back to balance. So these cats in Israel, they're smart. They did some really cool stuff. They checked endogenous endocannabinoids in these autistic kids.
Oh, so anandamide, is that correct?
Anandamide, correct.
Oh, wow.
So your body produces your own CBD, anandamide and 2-AG. And it gets real scientific, and I've done
breast milk.
I'm done. I'm so into the weeds in this because you start going down the scientific pathway. There are people that have broken it down to a molecule, and it's very hard. If I'm going to sit there and talk to you, and I'm going to explain how the hippocampus affects your sleep, I'm going to have to talk some serious science. If I really want to explain to you how the endocannabinoid system affects the autism spectrum disorder, we're going to have to geek out.
Yeah.
And that's why this review article that we're putting out is thick.
Yeah.
It's hard.
We're probably going to do a layman's term. Seriously.
Well, that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
So basically the same researcher that we tasked for putting that together, put this together. I said, I'm going to go on a show. Can you just summarize it for me real quick? So evidence of a compromised endocannabinoid system occurring in patients with autism spectrum disorder has been established. In a study published in 2018, plasma levels of anandamide have been consistently decreased in children diagnosed with autism. I'm going to say that one more time. Plasma levels of your own endogenous endocannabinoid are decreased in autism spectrum disorder. You can help people by getting that back up. One way is to use a hemp-derived CBD product. That is my scientific review and the lead-in to our guest, Joy Beckerman, a badass in law and policy.
And so great to join you badasses in human health.
Oh.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well,
so, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, well, so Joy, obviously you've been in this industry now for 25 years, correct?
Yes.
Or 28?
It's since about 1990. In
okay, 1990, but I know that in 1994 you were a part of the upstart, I believe it was the U.S. Hemp Authority. Is that correct?
Believe it or not, that was the Hemp Industries Association,
okay.
which I am currently the president of, formed in 1994.
How long have you been president?
Since January of 2018.
All right.
So I've been on the board since September
Madam President
of 2017.
Nice.
Thank you. And the vice president of the U.S. Hemp Authority, which we'll get into as we move forward here. But that's also the year that I opened up my hemp store in New York State. So I owned the first hemp store in New York State and had been introduced to hemp at a Grateful Dead show. Frankly, in the spring of 1990, there was a book that was written by a gentleman named Jack Herer, really the godfather of the cannabis movements, and edited by Chris Conrad, who is still with us today. Jack has passed on, may he rest in peace. And it was called The Emperor Wears No Clothes. So Jack and Chris and some other real pioneers of the cannabis movement were aware of the country's very rich history in industrial hemp. We used to pay our taxes with it. It was used as U.S. currency through about 1837 or so. And so they set about to prove the existence of our country's history and what this plant does. Because understand that the U.S. government didn't just remove the plant from our awareness. They attempted to remove all knowledge of the plant from our awareness. So they dug up, and this was way before, word processors. We were talking border tape and photocopying here, guys, and X-Acto knives. So they went to the National Archives in D.C. several times, dug up as much information as they could, and photocopied all of the documentary evidence that they discovered to prove to the world industrial hemp's history and what it can do. And that book was published and then was distributed throughout sort of the counterculture, the more alternative counterculture. And frankly, the Grateful Dead tours, understand they were a traveling concert with 50,000 plus people.
Sure.
And so this movement actually was bred through the movement of those concerts, and then the folks that would take that information into their communities. So I had received a flyer with excerpts from The Emperor Wears No Clothes at a Spring Dead show in 1990, and I was raised by an attorney who raised me all by himself, a man of great conscience and ethics, and a conservationist. And so I was raised with a real sense of justice and human rights, and also planetary healing. And so reading that flyer affected me on what I generally describe as a cellular level and altered the trajectory of my life. It was a convergence of a sense of justice and injustice and a sense of planetary healing coming together, because I'm reading all about this plant and realizing, wow, we have a solution here. And the solution is illegal for a safe, effective, versatile, valuable plant that is here, in fact, to serve all of humanity's needs, not just general wellness and human and animal nutrition, but body care, paper, textiles, biocomposites, industrial sealants and coatings, building materials, nanotechnology, biomedical applications. Somebody stop me, and then realize that it's illegal, and that affected me on a just a major level and has become the passion of my life.
So let me stop you right there. So we're going to get into law and policy about this, but clearly you're a very passionate person. Who is Joy Beckerman? Let's start from the beginning. You already mentioned your dad a little bit. Let's take it from the beginning. How did this person end up in this position, so passionate about her field?
Wow. Geez, I'm so not used to speaking about my own history, but the first thing that comes to me, again, because having underscored my father's influence, I have no brothers or sisters either. So just me and this solo practitioner lawyer guy growing up. And part of that, when I say that, is because my mother wasn't present. And even though
Did she pass away?
No, she did not. I think that it was not easy being a single mother back in the 1970s, and she had her reasons and her issues and her challenges in life. But I was raised to believe that my mother either had amnesia or was dead. My father said, your mother loved you so much, so either she has amnesia, Joy, or she is dead. She would never just leave you. And the reality is she neither was dead nor had amnesia. She had just left. And but they actually,
you know what, that is so, I think that shows the character of your father, who always stood by the belief that you needed to know that your mother loved you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And they had been divorced when I was 6 months old, so I had lived with her until I was 6. So this went on after she left the presence of the entire family. And as I say to her today, because she could not possibly be more regretful or apologetic, which I insist that she stops with that energy, because I believe that had I not been a motherless child, had I not been under the influence of he was a harsh guy, but a very functional, responsible, nurturing man who groomed me to be well-rounded and prepared me for college and all of those things.
Taught you how to be a deadhead.
Yeah, I wouldn't be. I wouldn't. The bumper sticker on Dead Tour was like, "From good homes." I remember. So my dad thinks I'm in college. Bumper sticker. But had I not been a motherless child, had it not gone exactly the way it unfolded, I don't think that I would have had the courage and the passion to do what I do today. So my mother not being a part of my life, I think also turned me into a pretty strong human being, and that iron was forged further through my very strong father.
Everything's a new opportunity. Everything.
Yes.
Everything is. So you're raised in this home. Your father's trying his best. Education background. How did you eventually discover? You eventually discovered hemp through the Dead concert?
Yes.
Literally like just a flyer.
Literally a flyer at a Grateful Dead show. And I want you to know, I also found about natural childbirth through Grateful Dead shows, Ayurvedic medicine through Grateful Dead shows, vegetarianism through Grateful Dead shows. I was a poster child. Just a little plug for the Grateful Dead community there.
I did not know any of that.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
I had 2 home births as a result of what I learned about midwifery versus dirty hospitals. Now, had I been at risk at all, I would have been in a hospital, so you know, but I was a low-risk pregnancy.
Well, people did it at home all the way until a little over 100 years ago.
Head scratcher for thousands and thousands and thousands of years at home.
Right.
They have to train taxi drivers on how to deliver babies in some cities which are really crowded.
Yeah.
Because so many babies are born in taxis on the way to the hospital.
Side note, is that an upcharge on Uber?
Ooh, that's a big tip.
Like Uber
that
X,
Uber driver better get tipped.
Uber X delivery? Is that something that we can do? I don't know. Anyway.
Uber OBGYN.
You know what? I followed Jay-Z for years, and I did not get any of those amazing life skills from doing the Jay-Z tours.
No, I think honestly, there's probably a lot though that goes on in terms of the community jam bands that kind of move like that. I saw that at widespread shows or fish shows, that you have a community that really moves and migrates and
in the planetary healing community.
Yeah, without question. And they basically, I mean, that becomes their community. And then education is only going to follow suit when you want to let people that you know and care about in your community know something new. So it really doesn't surprise me that was something that was picked up there.
Indeed. And should just also tell you, it is of such a community that I did entire Grateful Dead tours where I maybe only saw 3 shows sometimes. Mm-hmm. I wasn't, believe me, it's the community that
makes a lot more sense. Mm-hmm. That makes a lot more sense. Every year Jimmy Buffett comes here, and I have a whole group of friends that they just rally around that, and they do the Jimmy Buffett thing for like 3 days.
Sure. Yeah, it's a long-term thing. And if you're into parrots, then I think that's also probably a beneficial place.
All right, so Joy Beckerman's following the dead, and you discover hemp. Next stage.
Yay. Okay. So, and also understanding that, and not to beat this like a dead horse, because we'll evolve here up in time, but understand that, the major song, the Grateful Dead sing about planetary healing, sing about awareness, sing, wake now, discover that you are the eyes of the world. And I took that to a whole nother level, as did many people, from that experience. And so there was also, a sort of tribe called the Rainbow Family. Now I'm getting really hippie on you guys here, which some believe are a cult. And I suppose if you are persuasive and weak, you could have found yourself in a culty situation.
Don't be biased on that.
But it certainly wasn't to me. To me, now the Rainbow Family does these gatherings, and still to this day, where you're communing in national parks, and it follows a Native American tradition. In fact, the Rainbow Family is part of a Hopi prophecy. And so I then began that also had a huge effect on my spiritual awareness, on discovering my purpose, learning about various world religions, which I have formed, my own spirituality. I take what I like out of all the different religions, and it's an evolving belief system with my own core principles. But this also then led me into, one day I got a flyer on a Dead show for a music festival. It said, this is a festival dedicated to peace, love, and music, and it's in Bethel, New York, in August. And I got this pull to go to this festival. I thought, I have to go to this festival dedicated to peace, love, and music. And I get there in the middle of the night, and when I wake up the next morning, I see that there are these vendors, and they're selling posters of Woodstock and so on and so forth, and I realize I'm on Yasgur's farm. This is the anniversary of the Woodstock Festival, in which didn't take place in Woodstock. I lived in Woodstock for many years, and I live only 11 miles from there now. It took place in Bethel because the town of Woodstock would not give Michael Lang, the producer of the festival, a permit. So he had to move it about 40 miles south. So I realized that's where I am. And there I meet somebody who speaks 7 languages, is sort of holding court about how to be an activist.
How many languages?
7.
Ooh, wow.
I know, a Brown University student who had been born in Israel, and he was sort of holding court, talking to people about how to be an activist, how to be an advocate, how to travel around and really do your purpose and be a part of the revolution. And
Let me say that one more time.
Please.
Do your purpose.
Do your purpose.
What a great line.
Yeah.
Do your purpose.
Do your purpose.
We are all here for something. Do your purpose.
Amen.
Sorry to interrupt. Keep
I think
going.
a lot of depression in the world is from not understanding that and having that. A purpose-driven life is the life.
Purpose-driven life. Some people will view that from a religious angle. Some people will view that from an educational angle. I mean, that's how we live. I mean, I'm trying to do my purpose, which is heal people.
Absolutely.
You're doing your purpose. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just love that line. Do your purpose.
No, we're
anybody listening, do your purpose.
Yep. And if you haven't found it, hemp would love to be your purpose, people.
No, absolutely.
You know what?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, this is an easy road to finding your purpose, because This is an incredible thing that we're talking about.
Yep.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just thought that was so cool.
You
Go on.
interrupt all. We're vibing so wonderfully here, Dr. Brown. Thank you, Ken. So
I go by Thor on the show.
I bet you do. Oh my gosh. So anyway, I think, and this is before, keep in mind, there's no email, there's no cell phones, guys, at this time. I'm literally talking the early 90s. But there are phones. And then several months later, I realized I've got the call here. I was going to Fisher College, studying paralegal college. I was working at a insurance agency in New Bedford, Massachusetts. But once you get the bug, you get the bug. And if you're not doing your purpose when you get it, everything becomes uncomfortable. And so I realized I gotta not work at. I need to go on the road and do my purpose and learn. So I call this gentleman and I, who had been holding court at the Woodstock Festival and spoke all those languages, and I just said, I really want to know how to save the world, and I really feel like you can teach me. And I remember him saying, it's funny you should call. I need a navigator. A navigator, I said. He said, yes, I'm going to the 100th anniversary of the massacre at Wounded Knee on the Pine Ridge Reservation with the Oglala Lakota Sioux in South Dakota. And it's going to be a global convergence. People from all over the world are going to come and recreate this 20-mile ride, this Trail of Tears. Keep in mind, this is December into January of 89 into 90.
In the Dakotas.
In the Dakotas.
Wow.
It's like 70 below with the wind chill factor.
Yeah.
And he says, and so I need to navigate to South Dakota. You can come with me. I'll teach you a whole bunch while we drive together from New York to South Dakota and go to this thing. And that really changed my life. I want you to know it was only later in life that because it was a huge convergence of people from all over the world. It was a massive learning opportunity for me and personal growth opportunity for me. And I only recently discovered that the riders, that three who had even decided to create this incredible ceremony, which had such an effect on my life, one of those riders was Oglala Lakota Sioux Alex White Plume, who is one of the major hemp activists, who has, been arrested by the DEA, has had his fields of hemp destroyed by the DEA, whose family has been persecuted because of their belief in hemp on that reservation, and so is a huge part of the movement and our awareness in the hemp industries, and again in those hemp movements. But I did not know that in 1990.
Sure. I
only recently learned that. So in any event, that's how it moves forward. Then I decide to open up the hemp store. I become I think a really interesting story that I just have to tell you. So while I'm doing the hemp store in Woodstock, New York, I get a cease and desist letter from the U.S. Secret Service because...
Secret Service?
Yes. Because we are stamping the stamp, I grew hemp, in a little bubble coming out of George Washington's mouth on every single dollar bill that's coming in and out of the store. We stamp the thing, I grew hemp, because we're spreading the message as those dollars are circulated.
Like a
little bubble.
Like a speech bubble.
A speech bubble.
Okay.
So it's George Washington.
Way before emojis existed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you invented the dollar emoji.
Gosh. And it wasn't my invention. Some brilliant person, there was a small army of us doing this, made the stamps, came up with the idea, and we were employing that idea as part of our advocacy. So I get this cease and desist letter from the U.S. Secret Service telling me I'm mutilating U.S. currency and I need to stop, okay? So we didn't have a bunch of advocacy organizations. Of course, there was NORML, amazing National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, formed in 1970. But besides that, we had High Times magazine.
Right.
So I'm in New York. Which they always were at the Rainbow Family gatherings and beautiful teepee. And so I called the then editor, Steve Hager was his name, and I said, "Oh my God, Steve, I just got this Secret Service cease and desist. So how can we use this? Like, we got to use this. This is amazing." Well, they definitely did an article there, but he also fed the article, I believe, to a Rick Cusick, who is on the NORML board of directors now, and who later went on to become the publisher of High Times, but at the time was just a writer for a small weekly rag called The Aquarian out of New Jersey. He's an investigative journalist at the time. And so I send him a copy of the cease and desist. Now, attached to this cease and desist letter was a copy of a $1 bill with the thought bubble and a fax number at the top. Well, I didn't know enough to look at whose fax number that was, but certainly Rick Cusick did. And he discovered that fax number was the fax number to the Woodstock police and said, it looks like the Woodstock police faxed this to the Secret Service, and the Secret Service is now acting on this. So he calls, actually now, I'm going to say he may or may not have, because of course an investigative journalist wouldn't lie to a police officer.
Never.
May or may not have led the police officer to believe that he was an anti-hemp journalist and said, what the heck is this Joy Beckerman doing in Woodstock?
She's doing her purpose, people.
I love you. I was doing my purpose. And the Woodstock police officer spills the beans and said, man, we've been trying to buy marijuana from her. I had much longer dreadlocks at the time.
Which, by the way, if you're just listening to it, I love Joy's look. I love this. I love this dreadlock thing going on.
Sweetheart. And so third set, because you go bald every time you have dreadlocks, alopecia. Let's see if we can get CBD on this traction alopecia, because all us dreadlocks people will love that. But they were much longer dreadlocks at the time. We are trying to buy marijuana from her, and we can't get any of our undercovers to buy marijuana.
Because you just had
no
hemp.
Shit, Sherlock. I don't sell marijuana.
Yeah, just hemp.
So in any event, so then he says, you're going to love this. So then we had her sterilized hemp seeds for human nutrition. We sent them to Albany to be tested for THC. And when that came back negative, we sent her hemp twine to Albany. Twine, you guys, to be tested for THC. And when that came back negative, we decided the only thing we could get her on was this mutilating U.S. currency. So we sent that to the U.S. Secret Service, and now we've got her.
So they just made you a target. And this is a perfect time right now. So believe it or not, we're up against it. That was a quick half hour.
Cool.
That was awesome. Don't go anywhere.
We know who Joy Beckerman is.
Yeah, we'll bat a small element of cleanup, because that's some of the most badass stories we've ever had told on Gut Check Project.
Now we're going to geek out on some law and policy.
So now you know that there's not THC in your hemp. That's why we're moving forward. Joy Beckerman's going to join us here in the next hour. We'll be back here in just a moment. Gut Check Project, episode number 6. See you in a little bit.
Right on.
This is the only 24-hour take-anywhere platform dedicated to food and fun. We're Spoonie.
Breaking news this hour from townhall.com. I'm Rich Thomason. Following his arrest this morning in London, WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange has now been charged in the U.S. with a computer hacking conspiracy. Details, correspondent Wally Hines.
The indictment unsealed in Washington this morning accuses Assange of helping former intelligence analyst Chelsea Manning hack into classified computers back in 2010. Manning used the computers to download classified documents and transfer them to WikiLeaks. Assange allegedly helped Manning crack a password that allowed access to the documents under an assumed identity.
British police arrested Assange at the Ecuadorian embassy in London after Ecuador revoked the political asylum that shielded Assange for almost 7 years. UK Foreign Office Minister Alan Duncan says they would not extradite Assange to the U.S. if his life were at risk.
That is our broad policy all the time in all circumstances. So it equally applies to Julian Assange that he will not be extradited if he's going to face the death penalty.
British Prime Minister Theresa May telling Parliament the arrest of Assange shows that no one is above the law. It looks like the dead of winter across a wide swath of the northern plains and the upper Midwest. Blizzard warnings are posted from Colorado to Minnesota. Colorado resident Chris Douglas says today's wintry weather quite a contrast to earlier in the week.
Yeah, it's beautiful, you know, walking around in shorts and T-shirts out in the backyard, but, you know, it's how it goes in Colorado.
He spoke with KMGH-TV. A suspect in custody in connection with suspicious fires at 3 historically black churches in southern Louisiana. U.S. Attorney David Joseph says the unnamed suspect is in state custody. More details expected at a morning news conference. On Wall Street this hour, the Dow is up 33 points, the S&P 2 points higher. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Now you can fly anywhere in the world and pay discount prices on your airline tickets. Book a flight today to London, Paris, Madrid, or anywhere else you want to go and pay a lot less guaranteed. Call the International Travel Department right now at Low Cost Airlines.
800-452-1075. 800-452-1075. That's 800-452-1075. Got an old car? You can donate it, whether it's running or not, to the United Breast Cancer Foundation and save a life. They'll even come and pick it up for free. The United Breast Cancer Foundation has saved hundreds of women's lives through their free or low-cost breast screen exams. But now they need your help. The United Breast Cancer Foundation wants to save more lives through early detection by offering women free or low-cost breast screening exams. And donating your old car, SUV, or truck, whether it's running or not, helps pay for them. Plus, you get a charitable tax deduction. Help the United Breast Cancer Foundation save lives by donating your old car, SUV, or truck. Call now for free pickup. 800-245-0823. 800-245-0823. 800-245-0823. Call right now. That number again is 800-245-0823.
Never Forgotten Apparel is more than just a premium women's and men's clothing line. It's a movement to remind us to wear American-made and serve those who serve us. Our heroes. Never Forgotten Apparel gives 20% of their total sales to nonprofits that support homeless veterans and off-duty firefighters, and 50% to individual veterans and firefighters in need nationwide. Check out neverforgottenapparel.com. Use promo code MATT, M-A-T-T, and get 15% off your purchase.
All right, we are now in hour number 2. It is the Gut Check Project, episode number 6, here with your host, Dr. Kenneth Brown. I'm Eric Rieger, and we are joined today by the great Joy Beckerman. Quick reset, do go to lovemytummy.com/Spoonie to grab your own Atrantil. Joy's going, she just said she's going to do it after the show.
Well, okay, so we're going to we're going to get back into hemp extract and all that. One thing, Joy, that you may not be aware of is that the polyphenols in Atrantil actually decrease the enzyme that destroys your endogenous endocannabinoids. In other words, these two, the powered by Elixinol, KBMD Health, CBD, and Atrantil work together. So that's how
Synergy.
Well, some call it the entourage effect as well, but that gets overplayed. And I'm listening to a lot of scientists now that hate that term. So maybe we should, I don't know if we move away from it, embrace it, what? You know, I mean, the HBO series is off now, so it has less effect.
Right. It's so true. And in reviewing all that you're doing some amazing work. I mean, both of you together, it's incredible what KBMD is doing. And so I've read about Atrantil. For whatever reason, I missed the incredible fact that you just said right now, that there are properties in it that actually destroy that which destroys cannabinoids.
So we were talking last half hour a little bit about autism, and we were talking about how living in the United States, most of us have a deficiency in our own endocannabinoid system.
Right.
Indeed.
And that is because of inflammation. It all comes down to inflammation.
Well, and it's because cannabis has been removed from our diet and our awareness. I would say that's primarily why we haven't had access to.
I never thought about that.
That's the reason.
They've been trying to get rid of this. Another reason, like from a health standpoint, if you...
No, so I have a specific question on that.
Yes.
So because hemp was grown for so long, cultivated here, and as you stated, we paid our taxes in hemp.
Indeed.
So the stalks were obviously used as fiber
Yes.
for rope, etc.
Yes.
Now the leaf, the canopy was fed to cattle because it was cheap. It grows fast. It's
seeds.
Seed as well.
Grain,
Yes.
absolutely.
So was that because we didn't always directly eat that, consume it directly as a plant?
Mm-hmm.
Were the CBDs? Was that present in the flesh, the meat that we consumed at that time?
like having
was
the
that
meat
ingested, or is that simply
kind of not accounted for.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to know that we have a very strong history of consuming hemp seed oil and hemp seeds, and it was in our apothecaries and in our systems, our food and agricultural systems, but certainly for ag feed. There are lots of studies being done now because neither the FDA or AFCO, which is in charge of animal and ag feed, have approved any aspect of hemp for ag feed. So we're doing lots of studies now on what they call the bioaccumulation of cannabinoids.
That's a great question, Patrick.
Awesome. Because I know, I know that we used it as feed. It was very inexpensive.
Yes. Now, how that came into our own digestive system and how we metabolize it and what the bioaccumulation was, of course, in that animal, that's not research that had been done now, and research is being done.
Love it.
Excellent question.
So let's look at this. So in my field, in the field of health, we are extending our lifetimes, but not our health times.
Mm-hmm.
We are becoming sicker as a nation. Now, a couple of things that Patrick just brought up. One of them is we are feeding our cattle we're feeding all livestock the cheapest, most fertilized crops possible. So we're getting the glyphosate through the meat. We're giving them corn and all these other things.
Mm-hmm.
We took hemp out of our diets.
Mm-hmm.
And then, because of lifestyle,
and out of ag feed,
phones, blue lights, poor sleep. So from a physician standpoint,
processed foods,
life stressor, processed foods, poor sleep, all decrease our own endogenous endocannabinoids. And then you compound that with the lack of eating exogenous endocannabinoids, such as hemp. Now we've got a dual process going on, and that may be one of the reasons why we are getting sicker.
Compound,
and maybe one of the reasons why when I give a hemp-derived CBD extract to my patients, some of them are like, you changed my life.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, I'm a new person. And it could be because of their own endogenous endocannabinoids being so low.
Absolutely, we all have different ways that we metabolize it. As you know, we all have different levels of deficiency, but it's what's happening. And to again discover this in our lifetime that we haven't been regulating our homeostasis. Oh my God. Guys, I'm wondering if I can just quickly wrap up my U.S. Secret Service story because it was just so good at the end. Oh,
yeah, we got more left. Yeah, do it.
The tiniest bit here, and it's the good news, awesome sauce that came out of this. So in any event, after these articles come out, the Associated Press takes the story and puts it in every major newspaper. Her hemp dollars draw U.S. haulers, okay?
Her hemp dollars draw U.S.
haulers.
Haulers.
Okay, so the little tiny U.S. Secret Service office in Albany gets overwhelmed with phone calls. Keep in mind, these guys have an important job to do. They were only acting on this because the Woodstock police were the assholes who forced them to make this a part of their agenda, right? So in any event, I get a call from the U.S. Secret Service in Albany that says, oh my God, okay, listen, Ms. Beckerman, the reality is that under the statute, it has to be your intent to render the currency unfit for circulation in order for you to meet the element of mutilation of U.S. currency.
Which is not what you were doing.
Clearly, you want to keep this money circulating
right.
because you are spreading your message. So you actually do not meet the standard of mutilating U.S. currency. You are not mutilating U.S. currency. Could you call off the dogs here? We're getting all kinds of phone calls.
You didn't instigate all that. That just kind of took
that
off
was the Woodstock
right?
police. This is what happens. And we're going to get into this with Texas law, lions and tigers and bears, oh my, when you got little local policeman here, little county sheriff there, county prosecutor here, local, having a goddamn opinion, a gosh darn opinion. Sorry. So in any event, so sorry about that, guys. So in any event, the U.S. Secret Service says, please call off your dogs. You are not mutilating U.S. currency. We have one favor to ask of you, however. Will you please use red ink. You're using purple ink, and the red ink would help us with the money counting machines at the bank. Your purple ink can affect how fast the money can be counted in the money counting machines. And remember back in the fax machine days, they were like, if you use red ink, it won't go through the fax machine, so you have to use blue or black. Remember
it's
that?
not detectable.
Yes.
Oh,
so
okay.
they said, if you use red ink, it won't affect the money making machines.
Gotcha.
And I said, I thank you very much for that piece of information.
What's more, you can see it easier anyway.
Well, my deal is, feel free to mess with the bank's people. So use the darkest ink you want in the world. If it's not your intention to render that currency unfit for circulation, I don't mind messing with bank counting machines. I don't mind breaking the system any way that I can. So I was appreciative of that information. But moving up in history and how we'll get to now law and policy is that then I go to, I have my children. I'm also studying at University of Vermont as an English major with these and women's studies. And of course, I'd gone to Fisher College for paralegal studies. And then I began a really extensive, we opened up the hemp store. I then moved to Vermont because I get appointed to be.
What year is this?
Now we're in 1996 when I moved to Vermont. That was the year that the inaugural Vermont hemp bill passed. So Vermont actually passed a hemp bill originally in 1996, and I was then appointed by Representative Maslach to serve as secretary of the Vermont Hemp Council.
Were they the first?
They were not the first, no, believe it or not. And so that's how I went to Vermont. I started working in law firms and then relocated my family as the children got older and I needed to keep them in like football cleats and nice clothes and a great quality of life. I moved to Seattle, which for a then single mother was a beautiful opportunity and frankly still is today.
For work.
Yes, began a dual career in compliance and complex civil litigation with hemp. So
as a paralegal degree, that was your degree.
Yes.
Okay.
And then went on to be a senior paralegal and in fact have worked with some of the finest attorneys in the entire West Coast, lead counsel for ERISA claims, which is the Employment Retirement Securities Act. So worked on the Enron cases, the WorldCom and Health South cases there, but and was even assigned to the largest municipal securities fraud case in the history of the state of Washington. Wow. So all of that and raising my children, being able to keep them in that lifestyle and being an over-involved Jewish mother at the same time, it was a fantastic breeding ground and learning ground and mentoring opportunity for me. So many people invested in me that allowed me then to do the work that I'm doing now as an advocate and in leading, helping to lead these movements. I've drafted law and policy.
It's just such a foundation because you've got the passion already and you basically you've touched every aspect, the introduction, the how do I do the work, what is and isn't legal from state to state. I don't know that we could find a better, more well-rounded person to be in the position that you're in.
And what's awesome is that she saw the side where she was a target at one time.
No kidding.
She's trying to. Did you have Did you have your boys at the time?
I did.
Yeah. So you're raising a family. Mm-hmm. You have the Secret Service showing up. I mean, if you're the kind of person that if you're the nail and the whole world's a hammer, you just stop what you're doing. You're like, I'm not going to mess with that. You just close shop. You didn't do that. You went, I'm gonna keep going.
Yeah.
I found my purpose. I'm gonna do this.
100%. And just a recap from the last half hour, whenever she was rounding out the story that the Woodstock police were essentially trying all they could to pin you down for selling THC, which of course is the active ingredient in marijuana, which people run in fear from. Regardless, you were saying these are hemp-derived products. They never found THC, so they basically resorted to a trumped-up charge of decorating a dollar bill. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's ridiculous. They just wanted a fall guy, and they couldn't get it.
And they couldn't. And I will have you know, and oftentimes a lot of activists and advocates are born because they have been persecuted due to prohibition.
Sure.
And I will say, however, and the universe, again, always conspiring in our favor, but all of those articles, what that did to the store is the community didn't want to be seen in the store.
Right.
So the store dried up.
Right.
Because there were no customers. Also in Woodstock, New York, if you know anything about Woodstock, New York, there's really only customers in the summertime. And now we learn a lot as young entrepreneurs in hemp. We lose a lot. But yeah, only customers in the summertime. And then the community supports you throughout. And believe me, they wanted to. They tried, oh my gosh. But when they thought they were under police surveillance for walking into the store, again, was a totally different climate in the early 90s.
Have you read Michelle Ross's book, Vitamin Weed?
No, but I have heard this is on the list.
So I've read it and I read it and I reread it because she's a PhD, and it's not an easy book to read. She geeks out quite a bit, but her story is that she was persecuted. She got pissed, and that became her passion as a scientist. So it's chemical. It's not law and policy. It is all chemical interactions, all this stuff.
Non-emotional.
But it's non-emotional, but it's all because she was persecuted.
Yes, and for what it's worth, mine was that persecution was, it wasn't like, I feel terrible even calling that persecution when I have friends who are in jail or have served time in jail or had their parental rights taken away or their business taken away or their real estate and assets taken away. Now that's real persecution. I got this letter, which I turned into a massive PR campaign for hemp awareness.
Accidentally.
Yes, accidentally. And of course, the passion had come before that. But indeed, I did experience just a little brief moment of that. And the rest of it, I will just say, by the grace of God, go I.
There's a lot of application that you can deliver to the listeners today. So I think that maybe what we could do is move into, that's obviously led to so many of the opportunities, the thing that probably most people are aware of that want to find good, meaningful, and resourceful advocacy for the hemp is the hemp inclusion to the Farm Bill in 2018.
Yes.
So as we round up this last half hour before we talk about the implications locally and state to state, tell us a little bit about your involvement with the Farm Bill of 2018, what the hemp aspect was of it, and I'll just let you take it from
Isn't
there.
Eric a great moderator? Like he just keeps
wonderful.
things moving, and I like that.
The two of you, you're both blowing my mind. It's just such a pleasure to communicate with you.
Yeah, good idea. Let's do that.
Let's do that.
Have a show.
So I have been involved in hemp advocacy for many years. I've helped to write legislation and policy in different states and continue to do that. I was not a part of drafting the Farm Bill. I'm very grateful to be working with folks who did. The Vote Hemp has been an advocacy group for years. Again, the HIA, the Hemp Industries Association, we're a 501c6, we're a trade association, so there's only so much that we can do for advocacy under that nonprofit tax status. But 501c4s are basically lobbying organizations or advocacy organizations, and Vote Hemp is one. Another is the U.S. Hemp Roundtable, a very powerful organization.
Is that the one that Mike Liago's head of?
Mike Liago is a part of it. I don't know if he is head of.
He's not head, no, but he is probably a member organization.
Definitely.
Yes, and may even be on the board.
We were
I'm
just
not
at
sure.
a meeting with Mike Liago.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And so the provisions in the Farm Bill, they actually came from the Hemp Farming Acts that had been filed in the House and the Senate. The Senate version was much more powerful. These acts had been filed for years, by the way, since 2005 in the House and since 2013 in the Senate. While many people think Mitch McConnell just came on board with his support of hemp, the reality is that he was one of 5 unpopular co-sponsors in 2013, which co-sponsored the very first Industrial Hemp Farming Act in the Senate.
This is nuts. I mean, 6 years ago, people were, in the Senate trying to do this?
Including Mitch McConnell and Senator Ron Wyden and Jeff Merkley. So reaching across the aisle, we're talking Democrats from Oregon and Republicans from Kentucky.
Yeah.
So this has been going on and on. So in any event, they continue to improve that bill because we started to realize even when the 2014 Farm Bill passed, which is where we got our definition of industrial hemp for the first time in U.S. history, distinguishing it from marijuana, there was a provision within the 2014 Farm Bill called the legitimacy of industrial hemp research. It defined 2 terms. One was industrial hemp, again, for the first time. Oh my God, it's separate from marijuana.
Sure.
Legally defined thereby. And another term called an agricultural pilot program, which was to study the growth, cultivation, apparently they're different, and marketing of industrial hemp. And so many states began to, Kentucky was one of the first among them, to open up these agricultural pilot programs for industrial hemp. That's how we started marching this ball down the field. But the definition of industrial hemp in that 2014 Farm Bill simply said the plant Cannabis sativa L and any part of such plant whether growing or not, that does not contain greater than 0.3% THC on a dry weight basis. Now, if I gave a flower to a 4-year-old and I said, you can play with any part of this plant, and then I said, what part of that plant can't you play with? The 4-year-old would say, well, I can play with all the parts. You just said that I can play with any part. And I'd say, you're absolutely right, 4-year-old. You can play with any part of that plant. There is no part of that plant that you cannot play with. Now, if I gave that same plant to a DEA agent prior to this 2018 Farm Bill, and I said, hey, DEA agent, you can play with any part of this plant. What part of that plant can't you play with? The DEA agent would say, the flowering tops, leaves, and resins. And you'd be like, what do you mean the flowering tops, leaves, and resins? The definition says the plant Cannabis sativa L and any part of such plant that does not contain greater than 0.3% THC on a dry weight basis. So the DEA continued.
Okay, so let me just stop right there and clarify something, because this is when I first started getting into hemp CBD extract. This is when we were working with, what's that attorney that we have for Toronto?
Todd Harrison.
Todd Harrison, who's written extensively on this.
Yes.
And that was when it was the weird stuff. It was like you can derive it from seeds and stalks, not from the flower. Now, what I want to clarify here is it's changed. You can now use the whole plant, correct?
I'm so sorry. I'm trying not to giggle. CBD does not come from the seeds and the stalks. Does not come from the seeds and the stalks.
Where have they been getting it from?
From the flowering tops and the leaves and the resins, my brother. And folks have been saying that they get it from the seeds and the stalks because the definition of marijuana, which has now been altered, and we'll get there, says this term does not include the mature stalks, the seeds thereof.
He wrote a consensus statement that basically, and he's like the leading attorney on this particular subject.
And I certainly, so there are lots of leading attorneys, and I don't want to start getting more public about who's the better attorney and who has, because I just heard of Todd Harrison today from you guys for the first time, and I work with leading attorneys in that space.
He's super cool.
I'm sure he
you
totally
know what else
is.
Super cool is whenever Patrick starts wiggling and puts his headphones on, that means he's got something to say.
Okay, let's hear it, Patrick.
So you talked about how they changed the definition of the usable parts of the hemp plant. And
I haven't actually gotten there yet, and I'm wondering. I'll go ahead and let you ask your question. Sorry, I'm used to. I teach lawyers, and I have to talk to lawyers like that too. But it works for me too. But I really think it's probably better for me to deal with the evolution of it before we get into your question. But go ahead, ask the question.
What she's saying is it's easier.
You might be interrupting my flow here, brother.
Yeah, it's easier to let the lawyer ask the question than her to just interrupt you and say, "I'll get to that."
Yeah, no.
But go ahead and ask it. Let's see if I can make it work.
So that definition changed a couple years ago, right? There was a December decision. The DEA put out a statement saying that was their, like they basically created policy in a statement. Prior to that, there was nothing. You're right. There was nothing. It was the entire plant. You can play with all the plant. You can use whatever you want.
I'm sorry. We're off on a tangent. And can I get us back on track, Pat? Thank you. And please forgive me, brother. You're amazing. But I'm going to get us back on track. Okay, thank you, honey. Thank you. Okay.
What happens when 4 ADD people have a radio show?
Yes. Okay. So let's go back to it, guys, and let me get into the flow of it, because it is complex and it's important. And understand, folks who are listening or watching, that you're not going to wrap your head all around this. There are lawyers who have to go through these courses several times before they wrap their head around it. So understand that we had that definition. It said any part of the plant, okay? But the DEA disagreed. The DEA, in 2016, this passed in February, it was signed into law by Obama in February of 2014. We start opening up these programs across the country. In 2016, December, so we're going now forward a few years here, just about, the DEA and the USDA and the FDA put out something called a joint statement of principles, and they published it in the Federal Register. And the DEA starts to pick apart the legislative intent of Section 7606 of the 2014 Farm Bill, the legitimacy of industrial hemp research, and they say things like, "Hey, and I'm paraphrasing and potentially being sarcastic because I just so love the DEA." But so anyway, they're saying, so they start to say, "Gee, thank you, federal legislators," patting them on the head, so to speak. "We appreciate this new definition for industrial hemp, but we're here to tell you that you're misguided. And And we're telling you that the definition of industrial hemp actually doesn't include the flowering tops and the leaves and the resins. Those are still controlled substances, and you're not allowed to get to the extracts. And this wasn't about actual general commercial activity. This was about you, doing marketing research. So they start to push back. The Hemp Industries Association and various other hemp organizations, as well as Senator Mitch McConnell,
right,
as well as Senator Rand Paul, whose letter, he had 16 other federal legislators sign his letter. We all, and the Kentucky Department of Ag and the University of Kentucky, all send letters to the USDA and the DEA and the FDA, very powerful, impassioned, articulate letters saying this was the legislative intent. We need clarification. What do you mean you're going to implement on a regulatory level this legislative intent in such an opposite manner? And so they don't respond to anybody's letter at all. Instead, they respond, and I really want to get to the good stuff, but it's important to understand the foundation. Instead, they respond by, and I apologize, the Joint Statement of Principles was in August of 2016. In December of 2016, instead of responding to all these impassioned letters, including to the federal legislators, who I have come to learn the executive branch doesn't feel like they really ever have to respond to the legislative branch. It doesn't matter how important you are. You can be Senator Mitch McConnell. If the DEA or the USDA or the FDA doesn't want to respond to you, they don't.
Wow.
And so in any event, instead of responding, they finalize a administrative rule called the marijuana extract rule that had been in a proposed state since July of 2011, which defines marijuana extract as one or more cannabinoids extracted from the genus cannabis.
Oh, so now it's including hemp and marijuana.
Let's back up because you covered a lot of territory right there.
Yes.
So basically, we've got senators saying that it's okay, and you're saying that branches of the government completely ignored it and said, we're just going to write our own stuff.
Exactly. So keep in mind, and I'm really going to underscore this, we have three beautiful branches of government in this incredible system in our country. We have the legislative branch, the executive branch, and the judicial branch, all checks and balances. So when the legislative branch fights with the executive branch, and that has been what's been happening in hemp since 2014, it's been the feds versus the feds.
Sure.
So I teach people when they say, well, gee, the federal government thinks this is pre-2018 Farm Bill. I said, which federal government?
Right.
It's the feds versus the feds. The legislators believe this. The executive branch believes this. And so the stakeholders, the Hemp Industries Association, we then brought it before the judicial branch and took them to court. The HIA has actually sued the DEA 4 times. We've won 3.5 times, so that we could make it clear that hemp, under Farm Bill compliant hemp and hemp extracts were legal.
That music means we're going to get right back and find out what the federal government really means here in about 2 minutes.
We're going to have part 2 of this show.
No,
we are.
To talk about.
We are.
Back with Joy in just a moment.
Have you done it? You catch a glimpse of yourself in the mirror?
I'm one of those people you don't want to see naked.
Yeah, most of us. But I mean, you look and you're going, what the?
I know.
How did I get to whatever?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, it's horrible. Hey there, it's Doc Thompson and Brad Staggs to tell you about a different way to shed those pounds. This is brand new tech. It's only been around for a couple of years or so. It was based on research from the University of California that said there's a molecule called OEA that's found naturally in your body. It produces it in the Mediterranean diet, that when taken in concentrated amounts, it will actually make you feel fuller and boost your metabolism.
I've lost about 10 pounds so far.
It's amazing.
It
now,
really is cool.
A company said, we can take this to market and make this great product that'll help you. It's called Riduzone, RIDUZone.com, RIDUZone.com. It's Brad's worked. It's worked for Brad's, worked for me, countless other people. Go to Riduzone.com and try today. You're going to love it. Riduzone.com. Remember that, RIDUZone.com.
Take the pain out of ordering your diabetic testing supplies with Diathrive. Diathrive ships the testing supplies you need directly to you when you need them. Best of all, with plans starting as low as $8 a month, Diathrive is probably going to cost you less than what you're paying today. Diathrive is so convinced that you'll love their service, they're offering your first month of supplies free. Simply type the code DOC, D-O-C, at checkout. Diathrive.com. That's DIA Thrive.com.
Are you tired of high cable TV rates? Sign up for Dish today and get a $500 bonus offer while supplies last. Plus, lock in your price for 2 years guaranteed. Call All-American Dish, your Dish authorized retailer now.
800-570-6630. 800-570-6630. That's 800-570-6630. Offers require credit qualification, 24-month commitment, early termination fee, and e-auto pay. Restrictions apply. Call for details.
All right, we are back here for the last half hour of Gut Check Project, episode number 6, with your host, Kenneth Brown. I'm Eric Rieger. We are joined by Joy Beckerman, and I don't want to ruin any of that momentum. That break came way too fast.
That break came fast. Just keep going.
Yeah.
You got it. Okay. So what happens is then the federal legislators start to learn over these years of unfolding of the 2014 Farm Bill, these agricultural pilot programs. Oh my God, we're going to have to clarify a lot more than just removing hemp from the Controlled Substances Act if we want to really drive this home. So this year, the hemp farming acts in both houses were great, but in the Senate, fantastic. So instead of just altering the Controlled Substance Act, which is what the hemp farming acts had all they'd ever sought to do before, was give a simple definition to hemp, remove it from the Controlled Substances Act. This year, and this is the language that made its way into the Farm Bill, a must-pass bill, they said, you know what, we're also going to amend the Federal Crop Insurance Act so that hemp can be, it's very clear, because when you remove something from a Controlled Substances Act, the bankers, the insurance people are like, well, I get that it's removed, but can we touch it?
Oh, yeah.
So are we allowed to do anything with it?
We have actually had friends that have had their bank accounts closed because they were banking with certain large
Absolutely, absolutely. So in any event, they know that instead of just amending the one act this year, they amended 6 acts, including the Federal Crop Insurance Act, including the Agricultural Marketing Act of 1946, which is where agricultural commodities are defined. So through this bill, hemp, and through these champion federal legislators, hemp has reclaimed its rightful place in the broad light of day with other agricultural commodities by now being removed entirely from the Controlled Substances Act. For the first time in 81 years, the definition of marijuana has changed in the United States. Understand that marijuana was not defined in the 1970 Controlled Substances Act. It was defined in the 1937 Marijuana Tax Act, and the Nixon administration adopted that language word for word, didn't change a single word from 1937.
So just to clarify that, 1937
is when marijuana was defined in that act.
Marijuana was defined through a tax act.
Marijuana Tax Act.
And they included hemp.
Well, it just said this term does not include the definition, pre-existing definition of marijuana pretended, and it's true. I don't want to say pretend. The reality is cannabis is one plant. We have these different types that we've bred out in terms of more oil seed and fiber or less resinous type. But now that we're into cannabinoids, those are coming from the resins. So the previous definition basically said marijuana is this plant, but the mature stalks and the non-viable seeds don't count.
Right.
And so we were calling that hemp. But hemp, it does have flowering tops and leaves and resins. You know, it's all one plant. And I don't mean to get too confusing with that, but understand that's what they tried to say. And they used the word, the architects in 1937, you may find this fascinating, knew that the goodies were in the trichomes of the plant, knew that the resin is where the cannabinoids were, which is why in the definition of marijuana, the pre-existing definition that was just changed on January 1st of this year, they used the word resin 3 times, even though it's only 2 sentences long. But moving forward, because 30 minutes comes so fast, and I really want to get us up to speed, Texas up to speed of where we're at.
Yeah, I just got
such a great story.
And I got 4 messages that basically said, hey, you're running out of time. I really want to know what's going on in Texas.
Amen. Amen. So moving on forward then, this farm bill makes its way through. It expanded the definition of industrial hemp because, again, we couldn't keep putting up with saying any part and having the DEA say any part doesn't mean any part, even though it's written by our lawmakers that we elected and it's in the U.S. code that's the definition. So they expanded the definition in the Farm Bill now to include extracts, derivatives, cannabinoids, isomers, salts of isomers, and acids. They include all, and the seeds. So instead of just saying in any part of such plant, which should have been sufficient, but apparently it wasn't for the executive executive branch, they now say seeds, extracts, derivatives, cannabinoids, all of those things. So in Texas, there is a special law. It's in the Texas Health and Safety Code. It's in Schedule 1 opiates, where it says there's an exemption from control when these substances are, quote, specifically accepted in the Federal Controlled Substances Act.
Okay.
So when something is removed from the Federal Controlled Substances Act, in Texas, and in many states have these similar laws, they're supposed to remove it from the State Controlled Substances Act. So now let's move into Texas a little bit. Currently, even though many states had taken advantage since 2014 of these agricultural pilot programs for hemp, Texas has not passed a bill. You had some incredible activists here. The Hemp Hill family, really props need to go to them. It's an entire family, a mother, a dad, a son, a daughter, and they also run the Texas Hemp Industries Association with Henry Belay. So they'd made a lot of progress educating the state legislature, but couldn't get a bill passed. So as a result, Texas currently has no agricultural pilot program or definition for hemp. And we start to get what I call the lions and tigers of bears, oh my, somebody with some type of authority, whether it's a police chief or a county sheriff, or whether it's a city department of health or a state department of health, or somebody from the attorney general's office that's going into, say, a vape shop, because apparently there's all kinds of weird things that can go on in vape shops. And so, and then CBD would get sort of caught up in a raid, and they would say, oh, this is a cannabis extract. This is totally illegal. So then an article comes out, this happened, it's really what's the state or the city of the week. An article comes out because somebody got arrested, some entanglement with law enforcement, and then it causes a sensational, oh my Lord, I thought CBD was legal, but obviously it's illegal because somebody got arrested. This is
every single time one of those things comes up, my office gets inundated with patients that say, this is not right. Dr. Brown wants me to take an illegal substance. And I have to fight that.
And you have to defend the legal status. So in any event, but keep in mind, in 2017, the commissioner of the Texas Department of State Health and Services, John Hellerstedt, I believe his name is Dr. Hellerstedt, did an action that would criminalize any possession of an extract from a plant of the genus cannabis, and prosecutor Wilson more recently, although believe me, we have good news coming. Listen, stay with me here, Texas, because I got nothing but good news to share. Okay.
Just so you know, you are in Tarrant County, where Sharon Wilson is that prosecutor.
Oh, you're kidding!
Right now.
Wow. Okay. So she says that's the basis for the current illegal status of non-prescribed CBD oil.
Right.
So keep in mind then, moving forward though, in last year, the Texas Department of Health and Services said it was going to consider a crackdown on CBD. So it asked for public comment. This is last year. They got over 1,000 negative responses. I mean, there was a public outcry saying, no, do not crack down. I demand access to this safe and legal substance. Do not crack down. And the Texas Department of Health Services then did back down from their original position and announced publicly that they were going to delay consideration of this, looking to Texas lawmakers to weigh in. And believe me when I tell you, the Texas lawmakers are weighing in. But some more good news comes up. So then the Farm Bill passes in December of 2018. It goes into effect on January 1 of 2019. And Jonathan Miller, a hemp hero of epic proportions, who is general counsel to the U.S. Hemp Roundtable, and as well as general counsel to the U.S. Hemp Authority, which I'm the vice president of, which created the first CGMP, current good manufacturing practices and good agricultural practices
Jonathan
for
Miller?
hemp. Yes.
He'd be a cool dude to have on.
Please have Jonathan Miller on. Oh my God. Please have Jonathan Miller on. So in any event, a hero of epic proportions, and by the way, a former state treasurer of Kentucky, as well as the former head of the Democratic Party in Kentucky, Jonathan, a liberal, as we say in a red state, just a fascinating guy. But works with everybody. He's in fact the most he's the most collaborative person I've ever met in the hemp movement. This man. So he then go to every state that had that law that I just told you about. This that says we will not treat it as a controlled substance if it is specifically accepted. He went through every state, and he found every state that had has that and then wrote a letter to every state saying, okay, it's been removed from the Federal Controlled Substances Act, and according to this code in your state law, you now need to remove it from your state Controlled Substances Act. So on February 4th, he sends that very letter to County Prosecutor Sharon Wilson and strongly urges her to abandon her efforts to arrest or otherwise prosecute as a crime the purchase, possession, or sale of hemp-derived CBD, admitting Texas law is undeniably unclear about the status of hemp CBD at present because there's no explicit prohibition of the retail sale of those products here, but there's admittedly not any express permission for the sale either. There is no explicit prohibition, no express permission, but it has been now removed. He gets then, keep in mind, this was all sent on February 4th, and he reminds her, listen, please be mindful of what the Texas Department of Health Services said last year after they asked for public comment and got 1,000 negative responses and said they were going to let the lawmakers do it. And he reminded Prosecutor Wilson, and the lawmakers are actually moving forward with this. So on the March 13th, then the Texas Health and Human Services Associate Commissioner Stephen Paul, who is of the Consumer Protection Division here, he writes back to Jonathan Miller, based on the requirements of the Farm Bill, which is the Agriculture
This is all
Improvement
public
Act.
access?
All, yes. And it's up on, it's not only all public access, it's up, if you Googled this stuff, believe me, it's posted on many sites now. But you can always go to hempsupporter.org or .com, hempsupporter.com.
Hempsupporter.com.
That's the U.S. Hemp Roundtable. It is an awesome place for information. There's a whole state legislative action and great portals to easily, and just takes a minute, guys, to engage in the process and do your purpose. So he reminds then Prosecutor Wilson, listen, they said that they were going to do it. So this association, the Texas Health and Human Services Associate Commissioner then writes to him on March 13th, okay, you're right. And the DSHS Commissioner, Dr. Hellerstadt, signed an amendment just now to the Texas Schedules of Controlled Substances, removing hemp from the schedule.
Was that the April 5th thing?
So, and then it was published in the Texas Register on March 15th. 21 days after something is published in your Federal Register, it becomes law, and that date was April 5th.
Now that makes so much more sense.
Doesn't it? Just last week?
All right.
Just last week.
Clarify in 2 sentences what actually went down one more time, because that was a lot of information.
You got it. I know it. So Jonathan Miller, General Counsel to the Roundtable, writes, listen, you guys have a law here that says if it's removed from the Federal Register, from the Federal Controlled Substances Act, you need to remove it from your State Controlled Substances Act. A little over a month later, the Texas Health and Human Services Associate Commissioner writes back to him and says, gee, you're right. Based on the Agriculture Improvement Act, the Farm Bill of 2018, it's been removed. And so Dr. Hellerstadt of the Department of State Health signed an amendment to remove it from the controlled substances, and it will be in the Texas Register on March 15th and become effective 21 days later on April 5th.
Because of people like you that found your purpose, I truly believe that we will have a field of medicine where you will be specialized and you're going to be an endocannabinologist. We are going to stop the progression of many diseases, and it takes people with your passion, your dreadlocks, to do this.
Oh, thank you. And your passion, moving all of this health forward, and the coalition that we are building in the hemp movement by being able to reach out to people like you. I mean, you take this message and you run with it, guys. You're doing it. It's just amazing. And so are healthcare professionals all over, trepidatious though they may be, who really try to understand the legal status as you have, as you continue to do. They are delivering this safe and legal and effective properties to their patients and clients all over.
Why did you say lions, tigers, and bears, oh my?
Because it's kind of like, oh my, there's another lion, there's another bear, there's another tiger, another entanglement with law enforcement based on misunderstanding. As Bob Marley says, although I think that Bob Marley may have gotten this from the Bible, as I often say, it's the Dos Equis guy. I don't always recognize a gospel tune, but when I did, it's from the Jerry Garcia band. But Bob Marley literally said, only a fool leans upon his own misunderstanding. And this is the lions and tigers and bears. So it's law enforcement, or again, a city department of health or a state department of health, or some authority, some regulator who is leaning upon his or her own misunderstanding, doesn't understand the legal status of hemp or cannabinoids in their own state on a federal level, or how that all works together, and it reads one piece as opposed to the entire landscape of the legal and regulatory field, and they then make a decision that this is illegal. They've read one thing, and the next thing you know, it's a newspaper article creating this sensational misinformation and disinformation.
It's just an extension, really, of we've all heard the term "all politics are local."
Yes,
because they truly are. Even though this changed at a federal level, and even though our state had that empowerment to basically follow the lead of the federal government, there's 254 counties in Texas. So we have one. You happen to be in the one that made the news.
Yes.
And out of all 254, she led the charge to basically ignore the rule of law as it applied through Texas, to take it upon herself to do that. Because if you were to go over to where you landed, which is in Dallas County or in Collin County where your practice is, or where I live in Wise, this is not what they're after. They're not after going...
they don't want to spend money on this.
They don't want to spend money on it. They more than likely, they actually know somebody who's benefiting from it.
And that's the other thing, public harm and resources, of course they don't want to spend their money. I do want to clarify for you, the law is unclear. So when we say that she was ignoring the law,
sure.
What she was really doing, just so we can put it in perspective, because now we're going to get up to the law and how the listeners can help here in Texas. This is a real important call to action. She was using her authority to interpret the law the way she wanted to.
Right.
And because it is open to interpretation, because currently it is undeniably unclear, there is no express permission to sell these products, but there is no explicit prohibition to sell these products. So she chose to interpret it in an unpopular manner, and in what we would say in an inaccurate manner, and certainly in a manner that does not serve the interests of the people of this county and the people of the state of Texas, who are demanding access to this safe, legal, affordable substance that is improving their lives on tremendous levels, some people. So moving forward in time, because I got more good news for Texas. The good news is going to keep coming here.
Well, let's hear it.
Throw it out there.
On the very same day that, back in February, that Jonathan Miller sends this letter out to Prosecutor Wilson, urging her to please abandon her efforts to arrest or otherwise prosecute as a crime the purchase, possession, or sale of hemp-derived CBD, Representative King files a very promising bill in the House, and that is, I'm going to get the number for you right now, that is House Bill 1325. Please, if you have a note, if you have a cell phone and you're not driving, Texas House Bill 1325, the Hemp Farming Act. And this is a great, by the way, bipartisan bill. So Tracy King filed it also with Representative Lyle Larson, a Republican. Tracy King is a Democrat. This bill, which continues to be improved, makes it very clear, removes all ambiguity. And that's because they got this model state bill originally, I believe, from the U.S. Hemp Roundtable, which has created a model state bill for all of the states to use that will really open up the doorways for a commercial agricultural commodity program of hemp, and make it very clear that what hemp products means, that they include cannabidiol and all cannabinoids, and that they are absolutely legal to sell at the retail level. So go ahead.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Please.
So I'm on the Texas House Bill 1325. It says that it was introduced on February 4th, and then it says action on April 9th?
That's the most recent, and I'm about to get there.
Cool.
I'm absolutely about to get there. And that April 9th, brother, that is showing you how, and there's been a lot of action. So if you actually looked at that tab, you could see every action that has taken place on that bill, and that thing is marching its way, advancing its fall down the hemp field like major.
Reported favorably as substituted, whatever that means.
It is moving because substitutes come in, amendments come in, and so on and so forth. But I want you to know that in this House Bill 1325, which needs support, and I want you to go to hempsupporter.com and click Texas on the state action to support it.
Do you know what's super cool? The sponsors, there's Representative Tracy King, Democrat, Representative Dustin Burrows, Republican, then there's Republican, Democrat, Republican.
That's what I just said. It's totally bipartisan. Because hemp is the great bringer together. Cannabis is the great bringer together of people, and the great unifier, the great synthesizer, you guys. And by the way, hemp seed oil hemp seed oil, meaning oil pressed from the seed, as opposed to extracted from the flowering tops and leaves and resins, it's amazing when you add hemp to anything how things start to work together better. It's fascinating, but I don't want to digress here. So in the definition of hemp in the hemp House Bill 1325, which again needs support, and you need to go to hempsupporter.com right now, click on state legislative action.
Hempsupporter.com,
please, and we can get the link right to the Texas for the website, guys, so they don't have to mess around with it.
Chef Patrick, how do we get that out to the listeners?
Well, we'll post it right with this live video, and then we'll go ahead and repost it again when we share it.
It'll be in show notes on the YouTube channel as well.
So the definition of hemp product, they don't just define hemp in this bill. The model state bill, it is very clear that we want to make sure we are also defining hemp product to make it very clear. We got to remove all this ambiguity. We're done with the ambiguity. We're done with the gray areas. We're done with giving them holes to drive law enforcement entanglement trucks through. We are done. We are making it clear. And thanks to Representative Tracy King and her Republican and Democrat counterparts, this does. And it defines as including any product. It's a good long definition, but for purposes of time efficiency here, because there's a couple more things I want to make sure the listeners know about Texas, it defines it as any product containing one or more, it's including any product containing one or more hemp-derived cannabinoids, such as cannabidiol, and can be sold at the retail level. Just last week, there was testimony before the House Ag Committee. That's, I believe, potentially, this was actually before April 9th. There's been a lot of movement. And the House Ag Committee basically there were 20 pro comments from the Ag Committee to the folks who testified. 20 proponent comments, not a single negative question from the entire House Ag Committee. And they were good questions. Nice. Sometimes you can really, because I do a lot of testifying in front of committees, you can tell by their questions, oh my God, how ignorant, or where are they really going, or are they trying to get me to prove their argument against? But this Ag Committee, no such questions. Great questions. And no negative comments. Marching its way down the field.
So becoming more educated.
Yes, absolutely. The one other thing that we do want to improve about the bill is that there are these labeling requirements in the bill that are really geared toward extract, because that's what everyone is thinking right now hemp is about, is extract, as opposed to these 10,000 other products and industries that I told you about: building materials, papers, textiles, biocomposites, industrial sealants and coatings, so on and so forth. And so these labeling requirements, while they may be okay and appropriate for hemp extract, they have nothing to do with hemp seed. They'd be cumbersome for hemp seed food or grain and other fiber products. So we are trying to get those an amendment there for those labeling requirements. That is the one teeny tiny problem with that bill. And for the sake of the bill, if we can't get that amended, believe me, you've got to support this bill. The bill is going to go through. Sure. There is a secondary bill so that the listeners are aware. It's just not as powerful, and we thank Senator Perry so much for having filed it. It's Texas Senate Bill 1240. It looks like it's been stuck in the Business and Commerce Committee here in the Texas State Legislature in the Senate since March 7th, and it's just kind of holding there. So I think this other superior bill, and again, that's with all due respect to Senator Perry and the tremendous support, because he's been working on this for some years, and we're so grateful for his support. And I imagine that he will then move forward supporting HB 1325 if that's the way that it's going. So there are two bills, dueling bills, but it looks like potentially Senator Perry may acquiesce to House Bill 1325.
Is there any significant opposition? Because we do have these senators who have come together to forge these two bills. Is there anybody who is trying to stymie the effort that we should be aware of?
Indeed. And again, Tracy King is a representative in the House, and it's Senator Perry, and we often see that, a House bill and a Senate bill. Certainly, there are folks who are against this that unfortunately are still stuck, and I don't mean to judge them, but they're wildly ignorant. I mean, I don't think there's any other way to say it.
Yeah, how can they logically debate why they would?
They can't logically. That would be an oxymoron. They cannot logically debate. They can debate. I mean, we see THC debates all the time
Sure.
that make no sense, but it's not logical. There is no logical aspect to this. There is no intoxicating component. There is no intoxicating potential in hemp as it's currently legally defined as, and believe me, 0.3% THC, we can go up to several percent THC and not achieve an intoxicating effect. That was poor Dr. Ernest Small from the University of Manitoba, who, when Canada legalized hemp and started regulating hemp as an agricultural commodity in that country in 1998, they wanted to come up with this definition, with this percentage, and based on certain things. I mean, Dr. Ernest Small admittedly basically threw it out there, and now he's trying to get that back up to 1%. And there is action about talking about increasing that for 1% because we could increase cannabinoid content, resin content. It certainly increases nutritional profile, biomass, yield, tensile strength, but research. So thanks to prohibition, we're just getting started on research.
All that combined, so you hit on a great, I know, trigger point for Ken, research.
Yes.
What is it that we could do as a community, as a patient, as somebody who cares for somebody else who has inflammation, that we could turn to a company maybe like what Ken's doing with KBMD, or other people who are based in trying to put practice or ideals behind the benefits of CBD and how that can be used as an example for legislators and lawmakers who are trying to say, look, these are the things that are benefiting from CBD and hemp. How best can someone make use of that information?
You mean make use of the research, or share their own data?
Share the research, share their own data, use that as an advocacy. Because if you don't have the data, you don't have the evidence, it's hard for someone to make something.
Well, like so for my community, I'm a gastroenterologist. I'm seeing tremendous benefits in certain disease states. I'm not making claims, but I'm seeing benefits in ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease, small bowel and colon. So I think calling upon different support groups, Facebook groups. So if you have Crohn's or colitis, if you have ulcerative colitis or Crohn's, share this episode and start looking into this, because I'm going to be publishing some or basically some clinical observational studies where I'm treating people and we're having pretty incredible benefits, where we're showing both endoscopic and pathologic healing. And so that's what I want to call out. I want to call out to pain doctors and say, have you gotten anybody off opioids? Publish that case series.
Yeah, because you said it earlier when you said they lack the logic. And really what Ken's done for over 10 years is show me the objective data without bias, even if it doesn't say what I want it to say.
Yes.
So let's look at it.
I have seen this in my own field, and it's a psychological term called cognitive dissonance. If you truly are rooted in something, you will not listen to logic. We see this a lot.
Yes.
My whole deal is this is called the Gut Check Project. What we talk about is check your ego at the door.
Amen.
Anything is on the table, just be open to it.
Yes.
And we've done photobiomodulation. We're talking about some stuff that I knew nothing about, and I'm learning. You're teaching me about law and policy. That is incredible where this thing has come. I just signed up to the U.S. Hemp Roundtable on hempsupporter.com.
Excellent.
So we just signed up as KBMD Health?
We did. And under KBMD Health, of course, you're well aware, Joy Beckerman is a part of Elixinol, the
Regulatory Officer and Industry Liaison, and so proud to be with Elixinol.
While we're talking about cognitive dissonance, we ran into this. We developed a natural product that fixes bloating and changing bowel habits. Some people would call it IBS, not making a claim.
Well, now that's funny because you mentioned Canada a while ago. When we're in Canada, we can say IBS.
Yes.
In the U.S., we can't.
All different. I wonder, and do we only have 2 minutes left,
We've got
guys?
a minute and a half.
Okay, then very quickly, because I want you guys to participate in this, another action call. The FDA is putting out a public comments. They will take them until July 10th. If you type out FDA cannabidiol safety public comment, FDA cannabidiol safety public comment, you will get a link in the Federal Register on how you can submit a public comment about safety. They are looking for public comment. They want data and they want safety. Do not, this is very important, do not say it cured my cancer, it cured my this, it cured my that. They don't want medical claims. They want data and safety.
So I just got sent an article for the first time ever that I have seen where they were looking at the safety of cannabidiol in people with liver insufficiency. So basically people with liver disease, what it does. So now we have doctors that are actually doing this. One thing is, does it work? Second thing is, does it hurt? And the safety is super important. If it doesn't hurt you, why not try?
They want the safety risk. They're about the risk. They don't want to hear about everything that it's cured. They are looking to see about public harm.
So the show notes,
which does not exist.
Well, it doesn't exist. It's quite very important. Unfortunately, 15 seconds. Definitely come back, Joy.
I can't wait.
Holy cow!
Can't wait.
Show notes on the YouTube channel are going to have all of these links. There's so much action for all of our listeners to take. Joy will be back. Thank you so much, Joy, for joining us, Dr. Ken.
Yes, not lions, tigers, and bears. It's kittens, puppies, and hamsters.
You guys are wonderful. Thank you.
That was an incredible show.
This is the only 24-hour take-anywhere platform dedicated to food and fun.